We're here at the home of Lewis Washington, and we're bringing this to you as part of our Profiles in Terrorism series because it was here at 1:30 a.m. on the morning of October 17th that John Brown sent his most trusted military captain, Aaron Stevens, to invade this home, to suddenly and without warning crash down the front door of this home and come in and take the unsuspecting resident prisoner. That resident was Lewis Washington, whose great-grandfather's half-brother was George Washington. And as George Washington died without any children, Lewis Washington was kind of like a descendant of George Washington, and he had one of George Washington's most prized possessions, a dress sword that had been given to George Washington by Frederick the Great during George Washington's presidency, and that sword had been handed down to Lewis Washington, who had it here at Beall Aire, his residence here in Halltown, Virginia. This was a terrorist target for John Brown. He knew that by making this attack on Lewis Washington, it would add to the terror effect of his raid by taking one of the leading citizens into captivity, possibly risking killing him here. This is the kind of methods that terrorists use, a sneak attack, something in the middle of the night. One of the elements of John Brown's plan for this takeover had a symbolic aspect. He sent on this raid 3 African Americans, and he did it for a reason. 3 of the 6 men he sent here were African Americans, men he didn't have prior experience with on his raids in Kansas and Missouri. But he sent them this night because he felt that African Americans would be better able to persuade the African Americans here to join with John Brown in his expedition. He didn't want to just send European descendants here. But even more symbolic, for the taking of the Frederick sword, which was the most humiliating thing that was done to Lewis Washington, and in John Brown's mind, it was symbolic of his dominance over, taking his dominance over this slave owner. In John Brown's way of looking at it, he was the enemy. And in taking this sword from Lewis Washington, he had Osborne Anderson be the man who would take it from Lewis Washington's hand. It was very symbolic that an African American would be taking the sword from Lewis Washington here at this residence. Now, interestingly, Lewis Washington himself did not recognize that the raider who took the sword was an African American, probably because Osborne Anderson wasn't really an ex-slave from the South. He didn't have a Southern accent. He had lived for many years in Canada, and his demeanor was not that of a recently freed slave. And Lewis Washington, in his account, never recognized that Osborne Anderson was of African descent. However, Osborne Anderson was really the only one of John Brown's party who wasn't either killed during the battle or killed during the takeover of the engine house or hanged in the aftermath of the raid. Osborne Anderson was able to escape. He actually had enough sense to leave before John Brown's forces were completely hemmed in. He left relatively in the late morning on October 17th, when he saw that the handwriting was really on the wall for John Brown. He saw that John Brown seemed puzzled, somewhat puzzled, as Osborne would write, didn't seem to have a plan for what to do next. Osborne made his way out of Harpers Ferry. He ultimately made his way all the way to Canada, and he would write his account of what had happened on this raid. He wrote his account of what happened during this takeover of Lewis Washington's home. And it's due to Osborne Anderson that we know much of what we know about John Brown's expedition from the Kennedy farm, of his actual battle plan, and of the ultimate fate of what happened here at Lewis Washington's home on the early morning of October 17th, 1859. We owe that to Osborne Anderson, a voice from Harpers Ferry, as he wrote. And this is where Osborne Anderson was on October 17th, 1859, as he participated in the capture of Lewis Washington here at Beall Aire, this home in Halltown, Virginia. And it's part of our Profiles in Terrorism series.